Welcome back to Corporate Fuckery, the show that unpacks the cost of autopilot ambition and what it takes to redefine success on your own terms. Today's guest, Raena Boston, is a force of nature, the kind of woman who can shake a table and make you laugh while doing it. She's the founder of the Working Momtras, a community built on honesty, humor, and the radical idea that doing it all and having it all are not the same things. By day, Raena is an HR leader. By night, she builds movements that make motherhood and modern ambition more human. A self-described lazy overachiever, a reluctant Enneagram 3, Raena brings wit, wisdom, and clarity to the messy middle of identity, motherhood, and ambition. Welcome, Raena.
Thank you.
Welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into HR, actually, because I'm always very interested as someone who's had a lot of HR interactions, not in the bad way over my career, but just what's your stance on HR and how do you navigate the corporate landscape from that perspective?
Good question. I don't think anybody goes to school planning to work in HR someday. I feel like a lot of us kind of land here accidentally. My degree is actually in magazine journalism. And of course, I graduated in the middle of the Great Recession when magazines were folding. So I had to pivot very quickly. So I worked in higher ed for a while, decided that I wanted to move out of higher ed because I eventually wanted to be paid some money, to survive.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working in professional services. I transitioned by doing campus recruiting, and then I moved into more traditional HR. To me, human resources, there is so much potential in that field. Like, we often think of HR as the police and the very punitive, like you're seeing them when you're in trouble or you need help with something, but like it's a sticky situation. And you often hear that HR isn't your friend. And I really want to upend a lot of that. And I think that just comes from approaching the work with care. And also, I'm very people first, labor first, worker first, because you don't have strong organizations without strong people or people who are bought into the organization. I think it's very important to take care of your people and do more than the bare minimum in order to have exceptional results.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that it sounds like we're pretty close in age because I also graduated around the 2008 kind of recession. That was the launch-ish of my career. And we've seen it, I believe, as this part of the generation of corporate life. We've seen it drastically swing from employee centric, even the idea of having a corporate holiday party or whatever little bonus of employee support people would have to literally pizza is the new standard of employee support at most corporations. So give us a little bit of what you've noticed and how you really think corporate life has changed and where is an HR professional like you see us going?
Ooh, those are such good questions. Where do I begin? Okay, so first, I would say in 2020, I think we had a really big swing toward workers, and I think we're paying for it now. I think that the pendulum has swung all the way back in the other direction. I think that we're going to see, I don't want to be negative, but just what I'm observing, especially with the layoffs that happened this week, is I think that the pendulum is swinging in the other way to make employees so afraid that they're going to lose their job, on top of it being a very economically precarious time, that you're going to see a lot more of that overwork happen. I think you're going to see a return of the girl boss. I thought that she had retired and she's coming out of retirement. I think a lot of that is a response to, on the worker side, I think this overwork is a response to a loss of control.
Mm-hmm.
Then as far as companies, it makes me very sad that we're in a place where we have seen the pendulum swing back to that recession time period where you're just lucky to have a job. You're just doing everything that you can to hold on because we live in a country that doesn't have any safety nets. So that's number one.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see work culture become toxic again, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. And full transparency, like I've been madder than a hatter this week at Amazon and UPS, really. Like to get rid of 14,000 employees and 48,000 employees honestly should be against the law. Like it really
Before the
should.
holidays at
Before
that.
the holidays. Yeah, before the holidays, before the AI bubble here is going to burst, at least from my technological opinion. I could soapbox that for a hot second, but I won't do that. And, you're here for it. Well, what I'm piecing together and I felt really blue this week. Like there's been a lot of grief in my life and piecing together the breadcrumbs on social media, it really feels like AI is getting the blame, but there's actually a lot more shit happening behind the scenes. And for the AI revolution, it's coming down to chips and political affiliation and all of that. And like, it blows my mind. And here's your next question. Like, it blows my mind that we would affiliate all of these layoffs with AI when it's clearly something else, tariffs, and that whomever internally is totally cool with that narrative. What's your perspective on that?
So I talk a lot about having it all as a scam, doing it all as a scam. The way that these layoffs are being blamed on AI is a total scam. Like we have just scammers scamming right now. And I think
Yes.
it's so important that we push back on this narrative as much as we can, that this is, to your earlier point, it should be a failure of leadership. There should be great shame
Yes.
with layoffs because
Yes.
something has gone wrong. Somebody overestimated. I think talking about 2020 and the aftermath, the hoarding of talent that happened, the talent wars that happened, trying to pay people and lure people and give people all of these things because of a fear of maybe losing competitive edge, maybe and not needing to do that kind of hiring, let's say. This is a confluence of failures, and the messaging, in my opinion, is just like a complete scam. It's not just AI. And on top of that, like we already know, like AI is great for so many things. It needs a lot of prompting. It needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of human interaction in order to work. And so the math is not mathing there. And I think that it's tariffs. And we already know Amazon tried to put on their website at the beginning of all this, or whatever company that said they were going to show that what tariffs were doing, and it got yanked. And that, as you can see, like all of the capitulation that's happened, all of the corporate donations and bribery that's going on, there's just a lot going on. And I think that to blame these job losses on AI is a scam and a lie and deeply shameful.
It is deeply shameful. I would agree with you. And Harvard Business Review, I don't know if you know this statistic, says that less than 5% of AI automation like actually shows productivity gains. And I did a whole episode on this in season 1 because I have a background in business architecture and capabilities within organizations. So I am and have spent many decades at this point in my career understanding how process work actually works. And you need that kind of work to be able to activate robust AI within any organization. So we've already had that conversation, but I really appreciate the shameful conversation because it's the leaders within the company. And this is the thing, I think the narrative that's happening, and I would love to know the executive perspective on this here and outside of this conversation. But I really feel like leaders of a certain level within organizations feel like they're untouchable and that this can't hurt them. And they're actually being rewarded for making these really difficult decisions to lay people off. And it's going to catch up with them. Are they aware of that?
I don't think that they're aware of it. I think there has to be a certain level of hubris and delusion to participate in everything that's been going on within the past, I don't know, 10 months.
Yeah, the 10 months. I think I'm most disappointed that Microsoft had a really big opportunity here to really change the employee experience by using AI as an expander. And instead of doing that, they just doubled down on the greed conversation. And unfortunately, like everybody's going to follow their lead. So
I think you're right. I think the time for leaders leading is here, and it's just not happened. And these are supposed to be the smartest, most innovative, and I think we're also saying that's a bunch of bullshit too, is these people are not smarter than you or me. They're lucky. And on top of that, they're making it up as they go along, and they're doing whatever they can to stay relevant, to stay on the top.
It's that idea around executives. It is a house of cards. People have built a lot of their careers on a house of cards. I was one of those executives at one point in my career. And this environment that's being created is they don't even know that their ego is cashing checks, that their soul can't really sustain. And they're going to wake up one day and be like, oh my God, what the hell did I do? I had an active role in this. And so many people's lives were completely upended because I didn't choose to use my voice. At least that's what I fantasize about happening. I don't know what your perspective is there.
What's wild to me is like these people could be the heroes. They absolutely could be
Yes.
heroes in this moment. They could stand up, they could push back, they could band together, they could do any number of things. And the fact that they folded with almost like a feather touching them is, again, it's so deeply shameful.
Yep.
Embarrassing,
Yep.
disheartening,
Yep.
you name it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I often think, because I've spent many hours in boardrooms, who's making these decisions? And I just picture everyone around the table being like, yeah, that seems like a good idea. And like they just don't say anything. And they're guilty by association. Like, oh, this was somebody else's idea. And then I think, well, is the business walking in the door and being, we have to make these decisions? Who's deciding?
It's almost like it's like a mass enabling movement. I think
Uh-huh.
everybody is, even at the top, I think that they're so afraid of losing their power, their money, or whatever, that have lost all principle.
Yeah.
And that is what is allowing this to happen. I don't know that anybody thinks it's a good idea. I know that they think that this is what they have to do to survive.
Yeah. I
And yeah, it's a lot of cowardice.
What would you tell our powerhouse women out there that are listening to this and knowing that they have an active role in some of this decision making? And I'm not trying to put it on women and strap one more thing to a woman's back that she has to navigate at home and in the workplace. But how does she find her voice from an HR perspective?
I think that we have so much more power than we think. And like even thinking about the leaders that I've had who I think people think that it's like the big standing up, walking out like in lower levels. And that's not it at all. It's allowing people the space to be humans and creating space for pulling all the levers of humanity that you can. So if it's somebody has a family member that passes away and you know your organization has a bereavement policy, encourage people to take the full 2 weeks. If they're talking about coming back in 3 days, 2 days, say, listen, I'm fully supportive of you taking the full time. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I want you to know that I have your back. I want you to have this time. I know that if you take the time, you're going to do even better work. It's those types of glimmers and moments of pushing on the things that are already established, that already exist, and give people the permission to use those tools is so important.
I couldn't agree with you more. Let's transition for a hot second about women supporting women in the workplace, because I think it's glaringly obvious, given the patriarchal structure of a lot of these corporations, that in some cases, those are our only advocates or might be perceived as our only advocates in the workforce. Do you have any past experiences of like when that's worked really well and how you've leveraged women to create more senses of community and more senses of support, or where that's really failed you in your career?
For me, where it has shown up is me modeling the things that make me a human. So, for example, if I need to pick up my kids or I have a doctor's appointment, like I'm not minimizing that part of my life. I'm letting them know that this is a part of me as a human being. And I just so happen to be a human being that has to work 40 hours a week. Really emphasizing and allowing my full personhood to show up as somebody who is a parent, as somebody who has a life outside of work, as somebody who doesn't want it to be all about work all the time, who wants to genuinely model that it is okay to not live to work.
Hmm.
I think and also having leaders who have demonstrated that, who've given me the space to do that, who even acknowledge this is not how it was for me coming up. And now that I'm in a position of power, I really want to make sure that I'm not reinforcing any toxic things that I've experienced. And on the flip side, I've had people who I've worked with women who've been like, I work from my couch. I work while I'm drinking a bottle of wine and eating pizza. And to me, I understand that's a reality, I guess, for some roles, but that's just really not the life that I want to live. And those experiences have also reinforced to me, I don't want to live my life like that. And personally have pivoted from a professional services environment to working in social impact, which you're still going to work every day. So there's still demands, but really, the places that I have been have allowed me to be my full self and to not be a person who the only thing is the work.
Hmm.
Working in social impact, like a big push to do that was in 2021, I co-founded an organization called Chamber of Mothers. And it was really because of my experience with my own kids. So my first two children, I didn't have any access to paid leave. My third child, I did have access to paid leave. And lo and behold, shocker of the century, I didn't experience any postpartum depression or anxiety because I had the time to take. And I wasn't worried about money. My husband could stay home. At the time, he worked in healthcare and they don't offer any type of paid leave. I'm not in a state that has paid leave. And it really changed my life. And at the same time, the Build Back Better discussions were happening. And in Build Back Better was paid family leave.
Hmm.
And it got yanked from the bill. A bunch of women that had motherhood accounts on Instagram got fired up. I joined along with them. And I did that work for 3.5 years. And what motivated me, I thought that was the work that was going to be my full-time job someday. I never saw a day where that wasn't going to be the thing. There were some signs that I ignored because I wanted so desperately for this to be the thing. And I formed friendships and relationships and so on and so forth. There began to be like, what made it feel like, oh no, I've got to get out of this is, and I'm trying to think of like how I want to say this carefully. It really felt like it was like recreating corporate settings. I noticed that the things that I didn't love about corporate settings were being recreated. It was almost like an unconscious programming was like snapping back on. And I was like, we're supposed to be doing something differently here. And I do not love that it is going in that direction. Like it's almost like a recreating of like patriarchal power structures, of allowing, how we were talking about how in many ways what's happening with these organizations and these companies is they're allowing one person to shift their values,
Yes.
morals, ethics, how they do
Yes.
business.
Yes.
And I felt like that was happening too. To me, if you're going to be an organization that is focused on maternal health and paid family leave and accessible childcare, to make the conscious decision to not use the words reproductive freedom or abortion is certainly a choice.
It's certainly a choice. Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
it's not a choice that I co-sign. It's not a choice. So when I felt like we were like the external climate was causing a major shift in how we did things. And the fact that when I saw how the election went, I knew in my soul that was going to happen.
Mhm.
And then to still stay and still try and voice my opinions and still do all these things. And for it to fall on deaf ears and almost that corporate of, we hear what you're saying and we respect the
Great
things
idea.
and do the exact opposite thing.
Mhm.
And it is one of the most painful things that I have ever been through. The grief of losing that was worse than losing my dad. It just was awful. And also, there is no organization, no structure, no nothing that would allow me to abandon myself for a photo op, it just was an absolute no-go for me. And so once there were some lines that were crossed, I knew that it was time. And it was not possible for me to help right the ship. And I wasn't going to sink any more cost into that. And I think it was a very difficult thing and also the right thing. And I'm so proud of myself for choosing myself and letting go.
Yeah. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. I would agree, choosing yourself in a situation where you were so dedicated to the vision. You were so bought in on the Kool-Aid and you were like, "Oh my God, I have to make a decision that feels like it goes against everything I just believed in." How do you recommend that powerhouse women take the first step in making that decision for themselves? Because they know that the parts of them that are in conflict, it feels easier to stay than to go. But then it feels
Mhm.
easier to go than to stay. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's a duality that not many people recognize is soul crushing in a lot of ways.
What's important is to not let an external place become your identity. That so often happens in corporate settings, right? Googlers, you're a Googler, you're a whatever, however you name yourself, that your identity becomes the thing
Yeah.
and it's wrapped up in who you are. And I think it is so important as much as possible to separate those two things so
Yeah.
that you can see the line of demarcation, or you can see when something is starting to, what you're willing to compromise or give up in order for your identity to still be the thing.
Mm.
And also, in what ways are you abandoning yourself? In what ways are you over performing or over functioning to prove your worth into the thing? I think it requires check-ins with yourself of, where is this becoming my identity versus it's a thing that I do.
Yeah. I would agree with you. And the way that society has positioned a lot of these corporations, like I took great pride in working for Microsoft. That was a very lucrative, very prestigious here in the Pacific Northwest
Yes.
position to have. I also took a lot of pride in working for Nordstrom Corporate for 6 years. And wow, I had experiences there that many people don't get the opportunity to. And I think what makes it really hard is we spend 40 plus hours a week, especially us high achieving, powerful women, dedicating our life and our blood and our sweat and our tears to do an amazing job and be super reliable. And then it doesn't pan out the way we want. And that corporate grief completely sets in. And then you jump one step further to being laid off because of AI or whatever other scammy reason is going on. And it's the perfect storm of, well, who the hell really was I then?
Mhm. No, you're right. So while I was working building Chamber of Mothers, I worked for PwC for a long time. And even though I kept trying to, it sounds so good to other people.
Uh
Because when
huh.
you say that the acronyms or the words or the
Yeah.
whatever, people know what it is. And they know that it probably pays well. They know that it's prestigious. They know that it probably has some status. They know that you have like great benefits. And like, you would be a fool to
Yeah.
leave that. So that's another
Be a
thing. You would
fool.
be like absolutely crazy to leave it, and you do anything that you can, because thinking about like my parents' generation, they were company people. And
Yeah.
that was a big thing. We have a lot less of that. And I think tech really is the last, and I think it's done. I don't think it like is going to exist in the like, when people got into tech, it was like, oh, you've punched your ticket. You'll have paid family leave. You have all these benefits. You do this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be great. And I think what we've seen in the last few years is that, oh, none of that is stable. It could be taken away at any second. There's no longer a place that you go to get paid really well and that you could just ride it on out forever.
Yeah. And they're not interested in that either, right? Like I had leadership at Microsoft say, "Oh, you need to learn how to create an AI agent. You need to do this, you need to do that." And like I created a whole separate path within my work stream to go do that. And let me tell you, their idea and understanding of what it actually takes to stand up an AI agent is not as simplistic as what leadership has in mind and is actually quite expensive. I want to move on here now to talk about the Working Momtras and why you started this movement, what it is, like how you offer support and community to people, it sounds like us, that need to have a space to go feel seen and redefine success and ambition and really motherhood, because motherhood as a working person, a working woman, is not easy. Give us the lay of the land.
So I started it in 2020. I had just taken a promotion and I was really interested in, how do you define your own version of having it all? And so then I got this promotion in February of 2020. We all know what happened in March of 2020. I had two small children. My husband worked full time in a hospital, getting exposed to COVID all of the time.
Oh, dear.
And mentally, I just wasn't doing great. And also, it was I went from an extremely supportive team at VWC to one that was what you think of when you think of professional services. Honestly, just a very intense, high pressure. And it was very difficult to balance what was going on with the state of the world, with COVID, with the two kids, with this, and then moving into this job that felt extremely intense. And so I took some time off. I took a leave of absence. And on the leave, I really had a revelation of this is a scam. Having it all is a scam. I don't really want to talk to people about defining your own version of having. Why are we even trying to have it all in the first place? As I think about it and as I've sat with it over the years, I think our eyes are so much bigger than our stomach in that we don't even have enough. So why do we need to have it all? We need to focus on having enough to be resourced enough. We think that having it all is the cure to this hunger and this almost like a starving that is being done by all of the systems that are failing us. And so that's how that evolved. And so I used to do momtras every Mondays, which are like mantras. And then a year into that, I co-founded Chamber of Mothers, and then that kind of took all of the oxygen out of the room. And then I really put that on the back burner, and I would still create, and I still use my platform to talk about paid leave and the workforce and all of these toxic corporate cultures and how to exist in them. And also, you're not a failure. The systems are failing you. And we are individualizing and making it personal, the systemic failures. And what would happen if we thought about it in that way, as opposed to trying to each of us individually trying to cope with and have it all. So now at the tail end of 2025, I don't know what that space is or what it's going to be or what it looks like. I'm in a liminal space of I've had this big change and my kids are getting older. And what does it look like to be a person who's one, aging on the internet, two, that's constantly reassessing my identification with ambition, who is trying to figure out my identity in this post. What does that look like? And I don't know. I know that I feel like I should have it wrapped up in a bow on this podcast, but really, I'm just figuring it out. Right now, I'm just trying to understand how I'm going to use this platform moving forward. And then in the meantime, I started a Substack, which is called Unbridled and Unbossed. And it's really me trying to remember that I am that person. And when I am unbridled and unbossed is when I get the best reaction to things. And it also feels so scary because when you're being unbridled and you're being unbossed, that gives you people could not like what you have to say or think that you're being too much or think that you're being, as a Black woman, being too aggressive or all of these things. So the title is also a reminder to me to be that person and to have the hard conversations and talk about things like money and class and how they intersect with how we show up as women, with feminism, how we do a lot of things. Because I see one of the things that I'm really struggling with, how do I talk about this? Because I don't want to come across as a hater. But I really want us to interrogate why the girl boss is coming back and why is it giving us anything? And it doesn't allow us to challenge systems at all.
No,
I really think
it doubles down on the patriarchy of the system.
In individualism.
Yes, correct. So something that you said that just made my brain connect two dots is this idea of having it all. And I read a couple of years ago the sentiment of the pursuit of happiness, which I think is a beautiful tie-in to our whole conversation here. If you are constantly trying to pursue happiness, you're actually never going to experience happiness. If you are constantly trying to pursue having it all, and I think this is your point, you're never going to feel like you have enough. And you're always going to feel like there's more to be had. And for anyone listening, please think about that for a hot second, because the narrative is we can never have enough. And the comparison to all of these billionaires and millionaires and whatever, you could be quite content with the life that you've actually built for yourself. Now, if we switch over to the conversation around girl bossing, I would love to understand a little bit about where your perspective is coming from here and how you see the re-rise of the girl boss in the ashes that feel like their corporate life right now.
I mean, I would describe myself as a failed girl boss, like 100%. I think that when I was in my formative getting out of college, Lean In had come out. And in
Oh,
that book,
preachy.
yeah, there is, we are like still not talking about like how like race and class impact who can lean in, and also leaning in you to rely on the help of people who are a different class than you, a different race than you, more than likely. And I don't know how to neatly say this, but there is just, we're not getting a full picture when we talk about who gets to girl boss or who gets to, now there's like a whole, it's not anti-ambition. That's not how I would categorize it. There was an article in the New York Times this summer. It was about from girl boss to no boss. And I read the article, and the whole time I'm like getting more and more infuriated because the reason that these women are able to go from girl boss to no boss, and they really have their own consultancies and are running their own businesses, is a rich husband. Can we
Yes.
please talk about it? Like, you are not having to worry about insurance. You
Yes.
don't have to worry about paying the mortgage. And one job I had somebody I worked with, and she's just like, we spend my husband's paycheck and I eat my paycheck. And I have been thinking about that over the past couple of days. It's like the woman's income is like a nice to have. And like also in the article, I really disliked feminism became like an individual sport, in that it was like, am I being a bad feminist by leaving this job, or the feminists are going to judge me? And I actually don't give a shit what you do. Like, I don't care like what you do, but I want you to understand that if your husband or your partner wants you to maintain all of the domestic sphere and you have a full-time job, something's got to give. And if your paycheck is just for eating, it's going to be the paycheck.
Yeah.
And that also, it shows to me the limits of choice feminism, in that, are you really making a choice if the expectations are so high, not only at home, but in a corporate life, which doesn't give you, where you feel like you have to log on after 5 p.m. You
Uh-huh.
don't have any flexibility. You're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. You're making a choice under duress. You don't have a choice. You're not making a choice. You know what I'm saying? When we don't talk about, or when we reframe things in order to feel better about our choices, it really removes the burden from the systems and the institutions. And once again, you have individualized a systemic problem. And I know that the systemic problems feel big and they feel scary and they feel all of these things. And the answer is solidarity. It is telling the truth about your privilege, about whatever allows you to make the choices that you make. And instead of being like, oh, this is fine, I can just start my own little business, I can start whatever. Instead, why are you not thinking about the people who can't do that, who have been forced out of their jobs, have lost their job, they're a single parent, or they can't afford it, or they're the breadwinner, or any of these things? Like, when we reframe in this way, we're letting the systems off the hook. And the point of feminism is not how individually I can have it all. It is how can we all eat?
Yeah. Or have health insurance at this point,
Okay.
right?
I mean, it's just so dystopian to me that like we are having conversations about SNAP getting cut off on November 1st. And like I'm seeing people talk about, here's my course on how you can climb the corporate ladder. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Like,
It's wild. And I agree with you. And it's really hard to navigate. It's really hard to navigate. And also, it's not, because at the end of the day, we're seeing real people. I just posted on Threads last night. We're seeing real people in real companies step up where our own government can't do that. Hey, this guy's down in California, and I'm sure there's tons of it. But it was this pasta shop owner. He's like, I don't have a lot to give, but I have pasta. I can give pasta. And if you have a hard time asking for help, I want you to come in and say you're picking up an order for Uncle Vinny and how many you need. And I will give you whatever pasta you need so that you can fill your family's stomach going forward after November 1st. And like, I can't believe that we're in this place where this is how life is. And it's unfortunately reality for a lot of people.
Yes. And I think it's so beautiful. And at the same time, I think it's so sad that we all have to come up with an individual solution
Yep.
to, again, a systemic failure. People are coming up creating carousels. They're figuring out their food bank. They're looking in their pantry. They're trying to find a grocery buddy. They're doing all of this when all we had to do was last November not vote for this idiot. And we would be in a completely different situation. And like that, again, when we're not able to have those conversations about that, we should not have to be doing this. We should not individually trying to fill in the gaps. This is a huge failure. And on top of that, like even like thinking about like content creators who are apolitical or you know what I'm saying? Like to me, I'm like, you have influence for a reason. It is not to shill a bunch of shit on Amazon.
Mm.
It is to actually like activate and mobilize people in the ways that you can.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, coming to a close here, Raina, I just want to talk about if it's not the rise of girl bosses or no bosses through the corporate perspective. I am a big believer that part of the work that I'm meant to do with my work in subconscious mindset strategy, helping women leaders really learn how to not lean in so much and choose what's best for them. Like, how do we start changing the corporate landscape when it comes to balancing that individualism and telling the truth and also still surviving in these environments and these landscapes that are going to take a hot second to change? This isn't going to be an overnight
Oh,
thing.
100%. I think it is still doing enough. I think it is really resisting the urge to overfunction, right? I remember there would be times where I'm like, I could log in on a Sunday and get ahead for the
Mhm.
week. And no, I'm just not doing that. And also, I really want us to get to a space where we're collectively not doing that.
Mhm.
And I understand that there's a lot of fear of I have to do that in order to get ahead, to do this, that, and the third. And I also wonder like what would it look like to give I think we're all over functioning so much that if we gave 80%, it would still look like 100%.
I had someone early in my career be like, Lauren, your 100% is most people's 60%. So you got to evaluate here, like, what is actually the real amount? And I'm not trying to make this a gender thing, but I do think it goes into our conversation. I do think women strive a little bit harder to
Yes.
overfunction so that they can be like, no, look, I am reliable. Look, I can be superwoman. And that's the thing in the end that takes us out. That's the thing that like keeps us in survival mode 99.9% of the time.
I think you're right. I think it is really also giving people when you don't have to have everything is an emergency, right? Everything is
Yeah.
urgent. And when you can say, look, this is not urgent, or I don't want you working on the weekends, or my expectation is not this. If you're sick, I'm not expecting you to log on. And if you're sick, I actually want you to take the day. Those types of moments of giving people permission to not overfunction
Yeah.
as a leader, as a teammate, as a whatever, has so much, it's a micro pushback against the system that depends on our overfunctioning.
I agree. How do we get HR to lead the way on this? Is that a thing, or are we just asking individuals to step up and
It
individualize it
depends.
themselves?
It depends on your relationship with your HR person. I really try to be the antithesis of what people think of as an HR person, truly. I want to be able to have relationships with the people that I work with so that when things get real, they feel comfortable talking to me.
Yeah.
When they are going to have a baby, I want them to feel comfortable asking me for what accommodations that we have or what are things that we could do to make things better for new parents. I want to be a place where, and I think HR should be this place where they're really emphasizing to the business that the business isn't going to perform optimally unless we're treating people like people and not worker bees only, and to let people be humans first. And so if there's any HR pros listening, I challenge you to be that person and
Yeah.
try to push for your people as much as possible, not just the business. And If you're not somebody that's in HR and you're just a leader, or if you're a leader that has an HR business partner, somebody who works very closely with your team setting strategy, and you're talking about turnover or retention, or this person is a flight risk or whatever, really getting their buy-in to help you create the conditions that you want.
Yeah. I do believe everyone can win here if everybody decides that they're going to be committed to doing what's best for people. You don't want somebody in your organization that's going to be super toxic. It's not worth it. And whether
Right.
that's a leader or an employee, doing what's best for all of us is actually doing what's best for the entire organization. And I know a lot of amazing HR leaders like you who are here to safeguard the company, but I'm also here to have a real conversation. And I know a lot of HR professionals that are like, no, my job is just to play whack-a-mole and reduce the risk to the organization because that's what they pay me for. So I do think people need to take their individual responsibility in whatever capacity, like you said, we're at, and decide like how they're going to use their power for what's best and for people instead of what's best for the bottom line.
Agree.
Cool. Raena, it's been so lovely to have you. I look forward to seeing what you do to evolve the Working Momtras. You're absolutely lovely. I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
sharing your powerhouseness with us today, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Me too. This was so much fun. I really adored this conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And that's where we'll land today, knee deep in the scams we've been sold and fully aware of the moment we're operating in. Because let's be honest, we're in a delicate season. Toxic workplaces are making a comeback. Overwork is being glorified again. And the pressure to push harder is creeping back in like it never left. But here's the truth. When the system hits the gas, powerhouse women don't need to accelerate. They need to anchor. If having it all is a scam, if blaming layoffs on AI is a scam, if overfunctioning is a scam wrapped in a performance review with a gold star, then your counter strategy is your agency, your awareness, your self respect, your willingness to opt out of proving your worth through exhaustion. Every time you choose what's best for you instead of what's expected of you, you're not just protecting your nervous system, you're shifting the landscape. Every micro pushback, taking the full leave, shutting the laptop at a reasonable hour, declining a fire drill that isn't a fire, becomes a data point the system can't ignore. This act of self-preservation is a memo to the culture that the old rules are broken and that we're not going back. And every woman who exercises her agency makes it safer for the next one to breathe. This is how corporate culture changes, not by outworking the system, but by refusing to fuel it with your burnout. If you're ready to figure out what using your agency looks like in your next chapter, whether that's inside the walls of corporate America or not, especially in this moment of chaos, I'd love to support you. You can book a free 20-minute consult. I've included the link down in the show notes. Until next time, stay curious, stay powerful, and keep rewriting the rules of what success looks like for you. I'm Lauren DeGolia, your Chief Expansion Officer, and this is Corporate Fuckery.